Something like that, and then
Okay, Alan, you've traveled all over the place for Fox Products. Do you have any idea how many times you've traveled to Europe and maybe how many different countries you've visited?
Well, I've made about 35 trips to Europe, 6 to Japan, 4 to China, 4 to Peru, and in the course of doing that, I've visited almost all of the major cities of Europe. I've missed a few of the eastern cities, but all the western cities. And I've been very lucky that I've developed friendships among the players in all of those places, and most of my trips were repeat trips. I mean, it was not unusual for me to call on a given orchestra 3 or 4 times. And in doing that, I became friends with the bassoon sections, and they all would take me on tours of whatever was interesting in that area. So I got to see an awful lot of the European topography.
You probably knew the best places to eat and everything, right?
They knew it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then you attended the, what is it, every 2 years, the Double Reed?
Every year.
Every year? Double Reed, is it society?
Yeah, International Double Reed Society.
Okay, they have like a national convention that travels around the world?
Right.
Okay. How many of those you think you went to over the years?
Oh, 20 or 30,
Okay.
maybe more. And when I'm counting those 35 trips to Europe, I'm including a number of trips to the society functions.
Well, you got to meet a lot of people in one spot. I mean,
Yeah.
you got good bang for your buck. When you were there, then did you like host a reception or?
Usually, one time I sponsored a dance in Buenos Aires, and the girls from the Buenos Aires Ballet were the hostesses for this dance, and we all had to learn to do the tango with them. And I was stunned at how muscular those girls were. I mean, they were as solid as any football player that I've ever encountered. And there were other activities like that we sponsored in different places.
Alan, I wanted to talk a little bit about people that have worked for you and your dad here in South Whitley. Who was your dad's first employee from South Whitley? Or one of the few, the ones that you knew that stayed?
Well, Von Goebel was one of the first ones. Junior Sutton was the plant foreman, and he lived just south of here. And he was very supportive of my dad and of me later. And then Darlene Kurtz was my secretary for many years, and she was there 37 years. And then many of the important people beyond that were musicians that we brought in from the outside. Of these, Dominic DeVito and Chip Owen and
But Mike Trinicosti, was he?
Mike Trinicosti was one of them, yeah. DeVito was the most important figure.
Okay.
And he passed from cancer.
And what was his job here, Alan?
Well, he and I ran the research and development together. And he was an accomplished clarinet player and had a good ear. And we used to have a lot of arguments in which nobody got mad, but which we would disagree. And that contributed to a healthy environment in the plant.
As, I guess as you, again, traveled or people came to help you, we talked about a couple of people that you've met that maybe most people would have heard of if they're my age or older. Gene Autry?
Yes, that was at a party at the home of Caesar Petrillo. The Petrillo family was very active in music circles. There were two brothers, Caesar James and James Caesar. And James Caesar was head of the Musicians Union, and he was based in Chicago. And Caesar James was also based in Chicago, but he had a dance band that played at Avalon on Catalina Island, which is owned by Wrigley, or was at the time. And he used to spend his summers on Catalina and his winters in Chicago. And his son Bill and I were best friends from early grammar school until I moved to South Whitley. And his son Bill was very instrumental in my getting interested in the Chicago Cubs. And I met Gene Autry at a party of his, and I didn't meet him, but he used to hang out with Roy Rogers and his wife. Caesar Petrillo gave Dale Evans her start in show business, and they were good friends with Roy Rogers. He told a story once that when Rogers was performing in the Chicago amphitheater, Bill was in his dressing room, and as he strapped on his guns, he said, "Well, it's time to go out and make a fool out of myself and shoot up the place."
And when you talk about Catalina Island, California,
Yeah.
just outside, or you have to take a boat to get to
Right.
Catalina Island, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. And the Cubs did spring training there for years.
No, the Cubs trained in Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
But Wrigley was there for years.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Okay, so how and where did you meet Doc Severinsen?
Well, I had a good friend who was principal oboe of the Denver Symphony, and his name was Bill Gower. And Bill threw a party in Hattiesburg one time and asked me to come down for it. And Doc was there, and that's where I met Doc. And we hit it off. And one time I was sitting in the coffee shop at Cleveland Airport, and a hand came down on my shoulder, and I looked up, and it was Doc. And I'll never forget that day. That was a very touching moment for me.
Is there anybody else that you can think of? We ought to.
Well, I knew an awful lot of famous people in the bassoon world, but they're not people who would be prominent
that
to
I
the
would
general
heard of,
public.
right, yeah. Okay. I think that we pretty much covered all the notes that I had. Anything else we want to talk about?
You hung out at Kinney's Drive-In.
Mm-hmm.
What else about the movie theater downtown? How about
The Green Parrot was an important part of our activities.
Okay.
You know, it's important that we understand that Alan was given an opportunity, but it wasn't an immediate success.
No,
And because of him and his dad's connections, he was able to bring in people from all over the country to help become a success, taking 20 years to improve the quality time after time until Fox became a premier manufacturer of bassoons in the United States.
yeah. Well, there were a lot of failures before we got to the successful point.
Okay. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you, Dave.
Yep, good job, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with us. Yep.